Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So you're looking to get into handheld gaming. If you're familiar with the channel, then I don't think I have to persuade you that much, and if you're watching this, I don't think I will either. These are very appealing devices. They're attractive, they've got so many good qualities and traits that consoles, PCs don't have, phones don't have, that honestly, this is a product that sells itself. Now, the thing that you might run into is you just don't know which one to get. There are so many that are out there, and I'm going to go over the three that I think are probably in your best interest as a gamer. I'm going to cover quite a few things today, but hopefully by the end, I give you enough information to help you make that decision, because at the end of the day, everyone has their own opinions, and I'm not here to tell you one is way better than the other, because that's just not true. Don't let anyone online tell you that either. There are reasons why the Steam Deck is still selling extremely well, even after the Ally dropped. Performance isn't everything. There's a lot of things that go into this. So first things first, I'd like to let you know, I think that you've made a fantastic decision. There are incredible communities that will help you out if you have any trouble with these. And that was one of the first things that I found and why I joined the handheld community. And honestly, it's a big change from just having an Xbox and playing Fortnite with a bunch of other 12-year-olds. When you kind of step over the barrier here, the community kind of grows up a little bit. And honestly, it's been a very nice, mature change, because if you do have an issue and you reach out online, more than 90% of the time, someone will reach out with a fix that helps. They're not getting paid. They're just genuinely nice people. Now, I can't say that for everybody, but I just wanted to let you guys know that. And that's kind of where I made this channel from, was just enjoying the community so much I wanted to communicate with them. So first things first, let's get into the price range, right? So there's a lot of different things that can go into the price of these devices. There's multiple versions of each one of these. I know that if you're new to this, that might sound confusing. So let's kind of break down why they have price differences. So the Steam Deck here has a depending on if you can catch it on a sale, it's around $400 for the base version of this. It goes up to around $550, $600, and then to $700. Now, same thing goes with the Ally. It's $100 less for the non-extreme version, but this is a little bit different, so I'll cover that in a minute. The biggest difference for the Steam Deck is storage. Now, storage is a pretty big deal, because if you're playing a lot of AAA games here, like I am, if you've got Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Dead Space, a lot of these bigger games that take up a bit more space, maybe Red Dead Redemption, you're going to run out of space really quickly. There's definitely modifications that you can do with SD cards, or maybe you take it apart and you add in another solid state drive to that. It really just depends on your technical ability, and not everybody is on the same. So for me, when I initially got the Steam Deck here, I ended up going with the $700 version because it came with the most storage. It was just something that I didn't need to worry about, and I haven't. Now, if I were to give you a good guesstimate on what I think is a nice amount of storage, if you're looking to get an SD card, if you do end up getting the cheapest version of the Steam Deck, which is a fantastic option, by the way, you'll probably want around a 250 gigabyte SD card. Now, that will run games off of it a little bit slower. It might affect performance a little bit, but not anything to the untrained eye that they won't necessarily notice. So with the Asus ROG Ally here, the biggest difference, it isn't released yet, but when it does, and you might be watching this video by the time it releases, it will be performance. We don't know exactly what the specs difference will be, but this is $700, and the non-extreme version of the chip is $600. So depending on what those performance gaps look like, that's something that I encourage you to look into, because I don't have that information as of now. It might not be worth saving the $100 and losing out on a lot of the performance, because that was the biggest sell for the Ally when it was first announced was, well, you're getting a 120 hertz screen. Well, what kind of chip are we running? Because the Steam Deck doesn't need that kind of refresh rate, because it can barely keep up with most games. Right? Like I'm just being truthful there. Most games run at around 45, 50, 60 FPS. So 120 hertz screen, when this was announced, was kind of a big deal. And yeah, most games are running at around 100, 110 FPS. So I think that is granted. Now, there are drawbacks to having something that powerful, which I'll get into when I talk about battery life. But now we move on here to the Switch. Now, this is classic. I'm just going to go ahead and say here, if you are more of a party gamer, someone who likes to do couch co-op, sit down with your friends, your family, and you haven't already purchased a Switch, it's kind of like the Wii, right? You go to your friend's house back in the early 2000s, whatever, you were most likely playing a Nintendo Wii. I know I was. I know a lot of friends who grew up the same way, and you probably have a lot of memories with that if you're in the same boat. Um, Honestly, if you're nostalgia chasing, you're not gonna scratch that itch exactly. This isn't a Nintendo Wii. I think it's better, in my opinion, as far as what it can do. But the games really just depend on you and what you enjoy. The biggest thing that the Switch has going for it, because the performance is very lackluster, but this is why the Switch is such a good candidate even to this day. The games are made for the Switch. So a game like Elden Ring was made to run on a wide variety of computers. The Steam Deck, not necessarily one of those. A Steam Deck, I'd say, is a very, very low end PC. And when you're making games, you're not necessarily trying to tailor to the extremely low end of the spectrum. Now, whereas the Switch, when Nintendo made something like Super Mario Bros. Or any of these other, I honestly I mostly just play AAA games that have been ported because I think it's fun. But that's just me. Or if you're gonna play something like Metroid, something that was handcrafted for the Switch, it will be very fluid, very smooth. The performance, I don't care what you hear about Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, it is a very enjoyable experience. Whether or not that's 30 FPS or not, when you're playing this in on a plane, on a train, on a bus, on a boat, it doesn't matter. You're gaming, you've got great battery life with this. I think it is a fantastic option. If you've grown up enjoying those games, um, I think that it's pretty easy to cross these other two off the list for you if that's something that you're looking to do. Emulating is fun. I don't really condone piracy and getting Nintendo games on these either that other way, but it really just is up to you. It depends on your character, your technical know-how. But if you're looking to play Nintendo games, the Switch is there for it. Now, fingers crossed in the next I don't want to jinx it here, a year or so, hopefully we can get a Switch 2. There's definitely been talks about it. There have been preview units, right? And when I say a preview unit, it's like a box that they send out that's got hardware in it. And so it doesn't look like this. It's just to see what developers are able to do with the hardware. Um, so it's in the works, but until it gets in our hands, I'm not going to really mention it more than what I just did. So now that if you're looking more on the PC side, it really comes down in that $700 price range to these two here, the Asus ROG Ally and the Steam Deck. Now, for me, making YouTube content on this, consuming content on this really just seems like a yin and yang thing. Like there's always going to be people who fall to the Steam Deck side or the um, Ally side, and I don't really mean any pun because one's black and one's white or anything like that. It really just is what kind of gamer you are. I will go over the cons before I start going really heavy into what I liked about them. My least favorite thing about each device, least favorite thing with the Steam Deck is the anti-cheat. That was something I made very apparent at the initial beginning of my channel, was how that was very frustrating for me, which I will let you guys know what that means right now. If you are someone who likes to play Destiny, this game does not work. It does work and it would run just fine. Steam doesn't necessarily support it. And when I say Steam, I mean Linux, because let's go to the game info here, details. This game's anti-cheat is not configured to support the Steam Deck. And it's not just Destiny. It's any Call of Duty game. If you want to play online multiplayer, it's Fortnite. It's a lot of these battle royale games that you like to play, a lot of these first-person shooter competitive type games. Almost all of them are blocked because the game's anti-cheat is not supported for Linux. And that's not anything that is necessarily wrong with the Steam Deck's hardware. That's kind of just I'm not even entirely, it's like a driver thing, and it's super annoying. You can get around it if you boot Windows off of the SD card, which I don't recommend because that can kill your SD card. I did do that for a while. I played Destiny on here, and it was honestly a very pleasant experience, and it was mostly painful knowing that I could, if in a perfect world, I could just not even worry about the SD card and just boot the game up and play it. But it is what it is. And that's where the Asus ROG Ally comes in, because this does have Steam Deck support. You know why? I know I've got Edge open, but this is Windows. This is a Windows 11 format here. That comes with the device. So that means any game requires anti-cheat, that requires any Windows supported services that doesn't work on the Steam Deck will for sure work on here. And that has been one of my favorite things. But again, I'll get into my favorite things after. But my least favorite thing, I don't know how many people will agree with me, but I just don't like the way that this device is felt. Now, if I could take this screen, put it on the Steam Deck, if I could take the performance out, put it in the Steam Deck, I would so quick, you guys. I feel like now that I've actually used the joystick, it's been what, month, 2 months? I'm losing track of time here, but now that I've got to use these joysticks a bit, they just feel cheap. A company reached out to me. They're going to send me new, I believe they're Hall Effect joysticks, which I'll show you guys, because I definitely feel like these joysticks just feel super cheap to me after having it for a little bit of time, which I definitely is not something that I've loved. When it comes to a more premium feeling product, I guess this is the way that I've described it to friends. If you grew up playing in Xbox and you now have like an Xbox One or maybe an Xbox Series X, if you have a friend who has a PlayStation, if you've ever felt a PlayStation controller, that's how I would compare the two. This is an Xbox One controller. This is a PS5 controller. As far as, right, like what is actually going on, it's got track pads that move like mice. It's got vibration all over. It has gyro. The buttons have sensors that feel when you touch them and can know when your finger's on. There's so many. Also, these actually usable back buttons. We got lied to with these mappable buttons. These are just for Windows. It's like a Windows home button. You can pull up the pad. They were saying these would be like mappable to games. Nothing compared to what the Steam Deck's buttons actually do. So if you are a competitive gamer, or maybe you want to play racing games, you can use these as shift paddles. You can do whatever you want with these, where the Ally is a little bit, if you do unmap those, you're losing out on a ton of functionality, because you can use them to, right, hold that down, push up on the D-pad, and that opens up the oh boy, keyboard. It's been a long day. Just went to the lake, had a long swim. But yeah, so there's obviously some major differences between the two. Now, my favorite, and this will come as no surprise to you guys, has been the overall support that Linux and Steam has given to this device. It has been incredible. The developers for games like Cyberpunk, who are taking the time to go back and make sure that the games run well on the device, not only the build quality, but the community behind the Steam Deck has been incredible. I think that this is an iconic piece of machinery, and I will hold on to this forever. I will never sell the Steam Deck. Even if it loses all support, this is a fantastic device, and I have loved every minute of having it. Now, there has been some issues where you might have to reboot your system because some buttons don't work or whatever, but that can all get worked out with software. This is the bigger culprit of that. So where this has had a few issues, if you've had an Ally for probably the past month and a half, you know what I'm talking about. There's always some issue, something going on, but they're fixing them. But it's like weeds, you plant, you pull one out, another one pops up behind you. So I'd say give this a few more months, like 6 more months, and maybe more of those will get ironed out. But the Steam Deck's been out for like a year and a half or so, about a year and a half, and it still has issues. It's not a perfect world, but this is much heavier on the bug side. But my favorite thing about the Ally, the performance has been incredible. It is night and day. If you play a game on here like Elden Ring, for example, if you play Elden Ring, or if you play, let me look and see what was another big one. I've been picking up a lot of games, you guys. Cyberpunk was a really big one. I know I talk about that game a lot. I do think it's a fantastic game. It just needed to cook a little bit longer. If you play something like Cyberpunk on the Steam Deck, yeah, you're getting like 40, 50 FPS. It does look like you're looking at it through an underwater potato, but it depends on what you're looking to get out of the device. Like certain games will run and look all right, and I mean it was playable. It's more of like a novelty when I was playing Cyberpunk on here. It's like, hey guys, check this out. See this? This is Cyberpunk, the thing that kicks your PC's butt. I'm playing handheld right now. You can play Cyberpunk on here. It's like 60 FPS, 1080p. It looks great. Yes, there are some dips here and there, but this is a lot more. If you want a quality gaming experience, this will provide the quality. But as far as the actual like outside, not the biggest fan. And that's something that can change when you get cases, if you swap the buttons out, the triggers out, but you are losing out on a ton of the really cool and neat features that make the Steam Deck so unique. So honestly, if I had to say which one had the most features, obviously be the Nintendo Switch. Hands down, this is probably one of the most, at least in my opinion, it's not doing anything necessarily crazy, but when you combine all these features of being able to take out Joy-Cons, now this is its own controller, it has gyro, like, this is I don't even know how to describe the Switch, you guys. This has been one of the coolest devices ever. Hands down, ever. And I'm so glad I purchased one. So, but when it comes down to the PC side, the more PC games, this is a lot more akin to that. So hopefully let me end the video by saying this. Now, I know there's no way I could have like covered necessarily everything. I wanted to touch on the battery life a little bit more, but when you have a lot more performance draw out of the device like this, when I was saying quality, the battery is going to get burned a lot quicker. You're going to be cooking through it. You might have an hour, hour and a half, depending on what kind of game you're playing. So you're always going to want to keep a battery pack handy. The Steam Deck's a little bit better. The Switch kills it. The Switch has a fantastic battery life, in my opinion, for what it's trying to do. But now I want to end the video by saying this. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And if they're longer, I'll make sure that I get to them. If I don't get to them, I know somebody else absolutely will. That has been my favorite thing about this community, is the amount of people who are willing to help other people looking to get into this, because it's a lot more than console wars or whatever is happening on the other side of the hill. This is different. This is where men go to play, if that makes sense. There are a lot of really cool and smart individuals who help keep these machines going. Cryobyte Utilities is a really cool example of that. But I really appreciate all of you guys. If you like today's video, if you feel like there's something that I missed, or there's something that you wish you would have known when you purchased one of these devices, I'd love to hear that in the comments, because I know this is a bit longer. But I really do appreciate you all. Have a fantastic weekend, and game on.